Bitcoin hasn't had the best couple of months, but is well up on the lows of last year, and its cheerleaders are bullish.
I think we're seeing more long-term holders.
Bitcoin has a lot of value.
We can actually expect over 100K in pricing by end of year.
You can learn a lot from watching what the miners are doing. They've been investing. They've obviously been betting their businesses on the price of Bitcoin going up, and it looks like they're about to win their bet.
With the renewed attention, focus has turned to mining of the token and the best places to do it. In years past, many cryptocurrency miners would have been investing in China, but that's not an option anymore.
Miners are shutting down their computers.
In 2021, the Chinese government called a crackdown on the cryptocurrency industry.
They said that all crypto-related transactions will be considered illicit activity.
And that's how some crypto miners left China and moved their operations to places like Ethiopia. A stable economy, perfect weather conditions, and some of the world's lowest electricity costs. When we talk about crypto mining, it seems like Ethiopia has it all. But in a country with power scarcity and increasing climate change concerns, how viable is this industry?
Already the government started to receive a backlash from different people from the country saying supplying power to the mining companies is not right while half of the population doesn't have access to power.
I'm Jennifer Zabasajja. This is the Next Africa podcast, bringing you one story each week from the continent with the context only Bloomberg can provide. In this week's episode, Bloomberg reporter Fasika Tadesse speaks to us from Addis Ababa about whether Ethiopia is really primed to be the new crypto mining heaven. So how did Chinese miners set their hearts on Ethiopia? Let's bring in Fasika Tadesse, joining us from Addis Ababa. Hi, Fasika. So what are the reasons behind this shift and why miners are now looking to Ethiopia?
In 2022, the government has made a change in the policy in letting Bitcoin mining companies to get registered and start operating in Ethiopia. The second one is the ideal or favorable climate Ethiopia has for Bitcoin mining. So basically, Bitcoin mining needs 5 to 25 degrees Celsius, which Ethiopia has.
What are the other reasons then, Fasika?
Another benefit lies in the abundant electricity power in Ethiopia. So currently the country has a little over 5,200 megawatt of energy, so with a possibility of doubling that capacity in the coming few years once the Ethiopian Grand Renaissance Dam, which is the largest dam in Africa, becomes operational. The other major factor that attracted Chinese companies to come to Ethiopia is the low electricity cost. Power agencies charging Bitcoin mining companies a fixed rate at 3.14 US cents per kilowatt an hour for electricity sourced from the power substations connected to Bitcoin mining facilities.
And you would think it might make more sense to operate and mine in China, but how come they've chosen not to?
The reason given by the Chinese government was that Bitcoin mining has impacts on the environment, and also at the same time, cryptocurrency trading can be used for fraudulent activities and money laundering. So because of that, Chinese companies were looking for a better place to work or to operate in.
Fasika, you mentioned the environment.
Bitcoin absolutely is an industry that consumes a lot of energy.
A single ledger entry in Bitcoin consumes enough energy to power your house for almost a day. That's a climate crisis.
Surely being in Ethiopia, there are still a number of environmental concerns. So why then was Ethiopia so willing?
The government highly needs these companies to come to Ethiopia because the government can directly generate income in foreign currency. So the other part is from the investment perspective. Because of the deadly war that happened in the northern part of the country, most of the investors lost confidence in investing in Ethiopia. So these are the two major reasons that the government is allowing companies to come to Ethiopia despite the backlash on the environment.
What can you tell us about the bilateral relations between these two countries? There must be some political element to this as well.
China stands as one of the major bilateral creditors to Ethiopia. And also Chinese companies are known for holding the first place in FDI or foreign direct investment flows into Ethiopia. And also several Chinese companies has helped construction of the largest dam of Ethiopia. And also they built the major railway that connects Ethiopia with Djibouti. They also built the major or the main airport of Ethiopia. This economic and political activities shows that there is a strong tie between Ethiopia and China.
So Fasika, earlier you mentioned the dam and how China helped build it, the $4.8 billion dam. And it's one of the largest on the continent, as you mentioned. Can you talk to us about its significance, especially when we think about that dam in relation to now what's happening with Bitcoin mining?
Yes, Jennifer, as you said, it's one of the largest dams in Africa with a capacity of generating 5,200 megawatts of energy. So the government highly relies on this dam since it will help the country to boost its power generating capacity with the aim of exporting more power to neighboring countries, including Djibouti, Sudan, Kenya, and also they are planning to sell power to Tanzania. And also not to forget that they are signing deals with Bitcoin mining companies, which require intensive power supply.
So how can Ethiopia grow an industry that needs intensive power while half of its population doesn't actually have access to electricity? That's after the break. Welcome back. 50% of the Ethiopian population live without electricity. So it feels a bit contradictory to then bring something that is power intensive into this country. Fasika, how do you explain that?
Yeah, that's right. Basically, the government is trying to give two justifications. One, they say that they can generate additional income by selling power to Bitcoin mining companies so that they will build transmission lines and enable the people that are not connected to power to get more power supply. So that's one of the justification the government is giving. The second one is they are saying that they are selling surplus power from the local demand and the deal is not impacting the domestic power availability.
Is there any evidence that that's actually happening, that this deal and the miners are not actually affecting local supply? Do we have any indications at this point whether or not it's having an impact? Maybe is it just too early to tell?
Now the companies signed the power purchase agreement with the government. A few of them have imported the machineries they will be using for mining and the installation process. So not many of them started operations. So it would be hard to say the power supply or the power demand has been affected by this company. So it's a bit too early.
So then, Fasika, what's the benefit here for Ethiopia? You walked us through a lot of the different reasons as to why China is looking to this country, but on the contrary, what's in it for Ethiopia?
One of the significant advantages is revenue generation from the sale of power, so which the country will be getting paid in dollars. So this will help the severe forex crunch in the economy. Ethiopia is exporting commodities that is not more than $3.1 billion a year, while the import value is 3 times higher. So this will help the country to get more income in foreign currency.
A succession of developing countries like Kazakhstan and others initially embraced Bitcoin mining only to then turn on the sector when they realized its energy use actually threatened to fuel discontent among its population. I mean, is that something that could also happen in Ethiopia?
Yes, there are risks. The first one is the country's stability. So considering the nature of Bitcoin mining, which requires intensive power supply and the capital and most of the power substations are located in conflict-prone areas.
That's right. Fasika, for context, it's important to note the civil war that happened in Ethiopia back in 2020 and just how recent that was.
The
conflict between the Tigray region and its political entity, the Tigray People's Liberation Front, and the Ethiopian government, run by Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed, began on November 4 after the Prime Minister accused the TPLF of attacking a federal military base.
We estimate that 2.3 million people are in urgent needs of humanitarian assistance in Tigray, including 1.3 million additional people due to conflict. And
the peace deal was brokered by the African Union in 2022, so the country is relatively stable now, even though there are conflicts in different parts of the country. Another risk arises if there is persistent backlash and an increase in local demand. This could be potentially lead to a change in the government's policies because, as I previously mentioned, half of the population currently experiencing blackout conditions. And at some point, the government will need to provide power to this segment of the population. And additionally, if more industries require additional power and if there are concerns about the environmental impact of Bitcoin minings and the current flexibility from the government side may not be sustainable in the future. So this scenario could lead to the situation in Kazakhstan, where lack of available power leads to the imposition of additional taxes on Bitcoin companies, which were forced to leave Kazakhstan and find another locations to reside on.
Thanks so much to Fasika, a reporter from Addis Ababa, for your insight and your reporting there. As Fasika mentioned, Bitcoin mining is a risky gamble for both Ethiopia and the companies alike. Is there sufficient enough energy for mining to expand in the country and give miners that competitive advantage that they're seeking? But also, is it even going to be welcomed by the public? Perhaps the only guarantee for all parties involved is the volatility in which crypto continues to operate in. And that's it for this week. If you like the Next Africa podcast, please follow and review it wherever you usually get your podcast. It helps new followers find the show. I'm Jennifer Zabasajja. Thank you so much for listening. We'll see you next week.